What if the voice that once asked America to take me home almost left the planet entirely, training for a NASA ride, only to die plunging into the Pacific because of one backward fuel lever? John Denver's public melody was sunrise optimism, yet behind it ran eddies of government surveillance, courtroom drama, and cockpit flaws that would seal his fate. Rootless beginnings, Dutch, deserts, and a guitar. Henry John Deutschendorf Jr. drew his first breath on December 31st, 1943 in Roswell, New Mexico, just down the road from the runways where experimental jets cracked the sound barrier. His father, Lieutenant Colonel Henry Dutch Deutschendorf, was a decorated Air Force test pilot who chased Mach 1 for a living, filming the shockwaves that rippled over desert dust. Military transfers meant the family hopscotched from Arizona to Alabama to Oklahoma. By age 10, John had slept in more bunkhouse quarters than most adults ever will. That instability bred two lifelong reflexes: an ache for anything resembling home, and an equal and opposite thrill whenever a horizon appeared. On his 11th birthday, a worn-out Sears guitar from Grandma became the only friend that fitted inside every moving box. In Texas Tech dorm stairwells, he shaped that loneliness into folk riffs, blending Elvis swagger with the Kingston Trio's storytelling. Then, during a 1966 airport layover, he wrote a wistful tune called Babe, I Hate to Go. 2 years later, Peter, Paul, and Mary recut it as Leaving on a Jet Plane, shooting the unknown kid straight onto radio playlists from Anchorage to Auckland. Success demanded a stage name nobody had to spell. He chose Denver for Colorado's capital, a place he hadn't even moved to yet, but already pictured as a personal North Star. Clean air, tall timber, and room enough for a restless heart. Those endless horizons soon filled stadiums and a slim manila folder in a government filing cabinet. Stadium cheers and thin ice politics. The early 1970s were raw with post-Vietnam gloom. Denver's tenor felt like balm. Take me home, country roads, sunshine on my shoulders, and Rocky Mountain High spun on FM dials all summer, selling 10 million LPs and an ideal of simpler days. Yet every time he stepped off stage, another audience waited: the FBI. Newly declassified files show agents clipping articles about his anti-war benefit gigs and environmental rallies, marking pages folk singer, watch list. Denver refused to quiet down. In 1985, while heavy metal bands sweated under the Parents Music Resource Center hearings, he sat in a wood-paneled Senate chamber and called censorship a front door to dictatorship. Senators, expecting a benign crooner, heard instead a constitutional firebrand. His activism leapt from Earth to orbit. Fascinated by the Apollo era, Denver championed NASA's still nascent citizens in space idea, passed all physicals for the teacher in space slot, and for a moment seemed ahead of Krista McAuliffe in the queue, until politics and optics favored a classroom legend. Later, he courted the Russians, angling to buy a Soyuz seat. Between rallies, he kept polishing chart killers, 16 top, 40 singles by decade's end, but pointed lyrics like Calypso and I Want to Live started smuggling eco-sermons on a pop radio, giving Tree Hugger a 3-minute melody. Even love ballads would soon reveal sharper edges. Love songs, chainsaws, and broken fairy tales. College soundchecks brought Minneapolis art student Annie Martell to the wings. By 1967, they were married. In 1974, during a breath-snatching ski lift ride above Aspen's tree line, Denver felt the mountains and Annie and God rush in at once and hammered out Annie's song in under 10 minutes. Radio declared it the era's definitive love hymn. Fame, however, devoured the privacy that love needs. Touring 250 days a year, Denver missed anniversaries, adoption hearings, sometimes even the kids' birthdays. Still, he insisted fatherhood mattered more than Grammy plaques. If they remember me as Zachary and Anna Kate's dad, that's more than enough. By 1982, the marriage cracked loud enough for tabloid ink. During a property dispute, Annie felled his favorite aspens. He responded by grabbing a chainsaw and slicing their king-size bed and kitchen table in half to illustrate 50-50. The gentle minstrel image wilted overnight. The rebound came fast. Australian actress Cassandra Delaney swept into Aspen, and they wed in 1988. They shared studio duets and a daughter, Jessie Bell. Yet within 5 years, divorce papers landed again. Denver's own memoir spat a bitter epilogue. She managed to make a fool of me from one end of the valley to the other. Personal tempests soon spilled onto police blotters and into the cockpit logbook, DUS, courtrooms, and a judge who wanted a concert. September 1993, Aspen city limits. Red and blues flashed behind Denver's Porsche. Breath tests read over the line, and prosecutors threatened jail until a creative judge swapped bars for guitar strings, ordering a benefit concert, alcohol abuse course, and $50 fine. A second arrest in August 1994, this time after the car clipped a tree, shredded the wholesome myth. Denver pled not guilty, but the legal drag wrestled away something dearer than image. The FA, he pulled his medical certificate, grounding the pilot indefinitely. Depression whispers followed, though close friends blamed cabin fever boredom more than substance relapse. Denver doubled down on activism, co-founding the WinStar Foundation on 1,000 Colorado acres, lobbying Capitol Hill for wilderness protection, and filming global UNICEF specials. He preached sustainability to school kids by day, then peered skyward at night, still aching to climb above weather. If official runways were barred, experimental ones beckoned. The experimental gamble, Rutan Long Easy. Enter the Rutan Long Easy, a fiberglass canard airplane that looked like it escaped a Star Wars storyboard. Homebuilders loved it for range and 50 miles per gallon efficiency. Human factors engineers hated its cockpit quirks. In Denver's unit, the fuel selector lever had been mounted behind the pilot's left shoulder, backwards. Left fed the right tank, right the left. Fuel gauges were equally hidden, forcing pilots to twist 90 degrees. Denver found the stubby handle so stiff, he clamped a pair of vice grips on it for leverage. Fellow aviators called the setup ergonomic Russian roulette. He bought the plane in September 1997, logged barely an hour of transition training, and had yet to finish paperwork restoring his flight medical. Friends say he paced hangar floors counting days until the waiver arrived. Others recall him jubilant. Finally a bird he could fly even if the airlines and NASA wouldn't let him near their hardware. On October 11th, he practiced taxi runs, remarking to a mechanic that the valve was a pain. The mechanic suggested relocating it. Denver planned to, after just one more test flight. Fate would allow none. 21 hours later, the flaw and a split-second decision would collide. October 12, 1997, 10 seconds from impact. Late Sunday afternoon, Monterey Bay lay glassy, winds calm. Denver lifted off for touch-and-go circuits, banked east, radioed no distress. For witnesses saw the long, easy climb, cough, then yaw sharply right. Investigators later discovered the left tank dry, right tank half full, proof he'd forgotten the valve reversal. As the engine sputtered, Denver reached behind his shoulder to switch tanks. That twist likely pulled his foot full right rudder, snapping the plane into a lethal roll barely 500 feet above water. Rescuers recovered no flight recorder. Experimental craft aren't required to carry one, but tox screens confirm zero alcohol or narcotics. The man whose DUIs cost him his license died stone sober. The NTSB assigned primary blame to the valve's placement and secondary blame to Denver's decision to fly without a valid medical. The courtroom, the press, and the internet would argue over who else shared guilt. Aftermath, lawsuits, podcasts, and TikTok myths. The Deutschendorf estate sued the valve maker and kit suppliers, alleging negligent design and inadequate warnings. In September 2000, the companies settled for an undisclosed amount, neither admitting fault but promising new labeling standards. Aviation journals dissected the accident. Engineering textbooks now cite Denver fuel selector ergonomics as Exhibit A in human factor hazards. 2 decades on, episode 140 of the Flight Safety Detectives podcast reopened the case, urging hobbyists to treat convenience mods like life support decisions. Social media added its own remix. TikTok true crime microdocs rack up millions with thumbnails claiming John Denver's body never found, stoking conspiracies about sabotage, intentional crash, or missing limbs, none substantiated by the NTSB docket. The same app simultaneously virals acoustic covers of country roads, proving nostalgia and sensationalism can coexist inside one scrolling feed. While algorithms chase intrigue, museums and symphonies polish the gentler legacy. Legacy under revision, songs, satellites, and caution lights. In 2023 PBS remastered John Denver's Rocky Mountain High concert, Red Rock's 74 footage digitized for the song's 50th anniversary. Primetime pledge drives introduced Gen Z and millennials to a 31-year-old Denver belting eco-hymns under sandstone spires. Environmental nonprofits still quote his Senate testimony, and the WinStar acreage hosts student ecology retreats every summer. Flight schools, conversely, require cadets to read the NTSB Denver docket before touching a fuel valve. Thus, the legacy reverberates in stereo, tree planting optimism in one ear, design flaw warning in the other. Back in living rooms, that fatherhood quote circulates daily on inspiration blogs. I'm some guy's dad, some little gal's dad. If that's all they say after I'm gone, that's enough. Fans recite it while posting pictures of Zachary and Anna Kate, now parenting their own kids. John Denver's arc reads like American folklore. A test pilot's son chasing altitude in verse, a chart dominator who squared off with sensors, a UNICEF envoy planting saplings on foreign soil, a pilot undone by one blind lever. His story lifts on notes of hope, then drops with a thud that still echoes in hangar classrooms. So which chord lingers louder for you? The sky blue melody that nudges you to look up, or the red caution light reminding you that even gentle dreamers must heed checklists? Share your take below. Every thoughtful comment keeps the conversation and the music aloft a little longer.